The Vrak Empress Shalara sat on her throne and watched her empire crumble. Reports flooded in from every sector. Rebellions on 40 worlds, supply lines disrupted, occupation forces requesting evacuation, military defeats at the hands of supposedly inferior species. All because of the humans, what do they want? She demanded of her advisors. Why won't they negotiate? They don't want anything from us, her chief advisor said quietly. They want us gone. They won't stop until we withdraw from all conquered territories, or until they destroy us completely. Shalara felt something she had never experienced before, fear. The Vrak had ruled for 1,000 years through overwhelming force and technological superiority. They had never encountered an enemy who simply refused to accept defeat. The humans lost battles but kept fighting. Their allies were destroyed but they recruited more. Every setback just made them more determined. Then we must make them understand the cost of their defiance, Shalara said. Activate Omega Protocol. Her advisors looked at each other in shock. Omega Protocol was the doomsday weapon, the final option that no Vrak leader had ever seriously considered using. It was a network of devices positioned throughout the galaxy, each one capable of destabilizing a star. If activated, they would trigger supernovas in dozens of populated systems. Killing billions, Your Majesty. If we use Omega Protocol, we'll be destroying our own territories as well, the advisor protested. If we cannot rule the galaxy, no one will, Shalara declared. Send a message to the Council and to Earth. All military operations must cease within 1 week or I will activate the devices. Let them choose between submission and extinction. The message reached Admiral Burke's headquarters on Earth within hours. She read it 3 times, then immediately called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral after his successful campaigns in Vrak space, attended via holographic link from the horizon. Is this a bluff? Jake asked. No, Dr. Paul Henderson said. He had been analyzing the data Danny Cooper had stolen from Kepler Station. The Omega devices are real. We have confirmed locations for at least 30 of them, positioned in both Council and Vrak territories. If activated simultaneously, they'll cause a cascade effect that could destabilize dozens more stars. How many casualties are we talking about? Nicole Hayes asked quietly. Conservative estimate? 50 billion, possibly more. The room fell silent. 50 billion lives. It was a number too large to comprehend, too terrible to accept. The Council is already preparing to surrender, Nicole continued. Chancellor Theron sent me a private message. They're going to announce terms within 48 hours. Of course they are, Burke said bitterly. They're choosing survival over freedom. They'll become slaves, but at least they'll be alive. Can we stop the Omega devices? Jake asked. Henderson pulled up a tactical display. The devices are scattered across dozens of star systems. To disable them all, we'd need to strike simultaneously in every location. And I mean simultaneously, within seconds of each other. If we miss even one device, Shalara could trigger it and cause the cascade effect anyway. So we need to hit 30 targets at the same time. Deep in enemy territory against prepared defenses, with no room for error, Jake summarized. That's impossible. Yes, Burke agreed, but we're going to do it anyway. She brought up a strategic map showing all known Omega device locations. We'll split our forces into 30 strike teams. Each team gets 1 target. You have 72 hours to reach your positions and prepare. On my signal, every team strikes at once. Admiral, we don't have enough ships for 30 strike teams, an officer objected. Most of our fleet is still damaged from recent battles. Then we'll use rebel forces to fill the gaps, Burke decided. The Torvan, the Pelion, every species that wants freedom more than safety. This is their fight too. Nicole Hayes volunteered to coordinate with the rebel forces. Within a day, she had assembled a coalition of species who were willing to risk everything for one final strike against the Vrak. Many of them had no military training, no combat experience, no advanced weapons. What they had was determination, and nothing left to lose. Lieutenant Danny Cooper analyzed the Omega device network and made a critical discovery. The devices used quantum entanglement to coordinate their activation. If they could break that entanglement at the right moment, all devices would become inert at once. But someone would need to hack the network from inside the Vrak homeworld, where Empress Shalara kept the master control. I'll do it, Danny volunteered. You understand what you're asking? Burke said. The Vrak homeworld is the most heavily defended location in their empire. Getting you in means sacrificing the ships that transport you, and once you're inside, you'll be exposed to lethal radiation from the device while you work. I understand, Danny said calmly, but this is the only way to guarantee success. Someone has to do it, and I'm the only one who knows the VRAC systems well enough. Jake Morrison put his hand on Danny's shoulder. You were just a kid when this war started. Now look at you. Your parents would be proud. They're dead, Danny said quietly. The VRAC killed them during the first attacks on the outer colonies. This is for them. The mission planning took every hour of the 72-hour deadline, 30 strike teams, each with different challenges, different approaches, different chances of success. Some would face heavy defenses. Others would need to travel through unstable space. A few were essentially suicide missions. Admiral Jake Morrison led the team assigned to create a diversion near the VRAC homeworld. His job was to draw as many defenders as possible away from the planet, giving Danny's infiltration team a chance to get through. It meant facing the core of the VRAC military with a fraction of their numbers. It meant most of his ships wouldn't survive. Nicole Hayes accompanied the team, striking at a device positioned in Torvan space. The Torvan rebels insisted on defending their own world, and Nicole couldn't deny them that right. She would fight alongside them, teaching them tactics until the very end. Dr. Henderson remained on Earth, monitoring the quantum entanglement network. He would coordinate the final strike, ensuring every team hit their target within the same 3-second window. The timing was so precise that even light-speed communication lag could throw it off. He had developed a new quantum communication system specifically for this mission, something the Council would have called impossible and illegal. The 72 hours passed too quickly. The strike teams reached their positions, hidden near their assigned targets. Each team reported ready status. 30 locations, 30 chances to save the galaxy or watch it burn. All teams, this is Admiral Burke. You know what's at stake. You know the odds. I won't waste time with inspiring speeches. Just do your jobs, trust your training, and remember why we're here. We're here because no one else will fight. We're here because freedom matters more than safety. We're here because humanity doesn't surrender. Strike teams, you are authorized to begin operations. Good luck. Jake Morrison led his fleet toward the VRAC homeworld. Enemy sensors detected them immediately. The VRAC garrison, already on high alert, launched everything they had. Hundreds of warships, thousands of fighters, orbital defense platforms. It was the entire might of the VRAC military in one place. All ships scatter formation, Jake ordered. Make them chase us. Keep their attention on us and away from the planet. The battle was chaos from the first moment. Human ships dove and weaved through enemy fire, targeting communications arrays and sensor stations rather than enemy vessels. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to cause as much confusion as possible. Meanwhile, Danny Cooper's infiltration team approached the planet in a captured VRAC transport. They used stolen codes and forged credentials to pass through the first security layer. Then the second. Then the third. Each checkpoint was a gamble that could expose them at any moment. They landed in the capital city and made their way through crowded streets toward the Imperial Palace. Danny carried the hacking equipment in a sealed case disguised as maintenance tools. His team consisted of 6 humans and 4 Torvan volunteers, all of them knowing they probably wouldn't leave this planet alive. The palace guard stopped them at the entrance. Authorization? Danny's team leader, a woman named Kate Rogers, showed the forged documents. The guard studied them carefully, too carefully. Danny's hand moved toward his concealed weapon. Then the guard nodded and waved them through. They were inside. The Omega device was in a heavily shielded chamber beneath the palace. Danny's team fought through 3 levels of security, leaving bodies behind them. Alarms shrieked through the corridors. They had minutes, maybe seconds, before reinforcements arrived. Danny reached the device and began connecting his equipment. The device itself was beautiful in a terrible way, a sphere of crystallized energy that pulsed with power. Just being near it made his skin burn. The radiation was already killing him, he knew. But he needed 10 minutes to break the quantum entanglement. 10 minutes to save 50 billion lives. Kate Rogers and the rest of the team held the entrance. VRAC soldiers poured into the corridor and the fighting was brutal. Hand to hand, no room to maneuver. Just desperate violence in a narrow space. One by one, Danny's protectors fell. His hands worked steadily despite the radiation sickness making him. The council held an emergency session 3 days after the Battle of Saul. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber, And for the first time in years, they weren't discussing surrender. They were discussing something far more dangerous: hope. Admiral Helen Burke stood before them, her uniform still showing scorch marks from the battle. She had refused to change it. Let them see what war looked like. You want our help, Burke said bluntly. You want humanity to defend Council space, to fight your battles, to save you from the Vrak. And in exchange you offer us what? Permission to continue existing? Chancellor Theron shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, we acknowledge that humanity has proven itself. We're prepared to offer significant concessions. I don't want concessions, Burke said. I want you to understand something. We didn't fight at Sol because we're heroes. We fought because we had no choice. You still have a choice. You can surrender and hope the Vrak are merciful, or you can fight. If you choose to fight, really fight, then we'll help you. But we do it our way. A council representative from the Pelion species spoke up. Your way has already cost thousands of lives. Your weapons damage space itself. Your tactics are reckless and dangerous. And they work, Burke countered. The Vrak lost half their fleet at Sol. How many council fleets have defeated them? Any, even one? Silence answered her question. That's what I thought, Burke continued. You've spent so long being civilized that you've forgotten the first rule of survival. You do whatever it takes. You adapt, you improvise, you break the rules that will get you killed. The Vrak understand this. Why don't you? Nicole Hayes watched the debate from the visitors' gallery. She had spent years building relationships with council species, trying to show that humans could fit into their peaceful society. Now Burke was burning all those bridges, deliberately making humanity seem dangerous and unpredictable. But Nicole understood why. Fear was respect. And right now, humanity needed the council to respect them, not like them. After hours of debate, Chancellor Theron made a proposal. We will grant humanity full military autonomy in this conflict. You may use whatever tactics and weapons you deem necessary. In exchange, you agree to defend Council territories from Vrak aggression. No, Burke said flatly. The chamber erupted in confused voices. Theron raised his hands for quiet. You refuse our offer? I refuse to fight a defensive war, Burke explained. Defense is how you lose slowly. If you want to beat the Vrak, we need to take the fight to them. We need to strike their territory, disrupt their supply lines, and give their subject species the tools to rebel. We need to make the Vrak Empire collapse from within. That's madness, a council military commander protested. We've never invaded another species' home territory. It violates every principle of our military doctrine. Your military doctrine is why you're losing, Burke said. But fine. If the council won't support an offensive, humanity will do it alone. We don't need your permission. She turned to leave, but Chancellor Theron called after her. Wait. If we agree to your plan, what guarantee do we have that humanity won't become the next threat? That you won't use these weapons against us once the Vrak are defeated? Burke looked back at him. You don't have any guarantee. That's what trust means. You're asking us to bleed for you, to die protecting your worlds. The least you can do is trust that we're not doing it to conquer you afterward. Besides, if we wanted to conquer the council, we would have done it already. Jake Morrison received his new orders and read them twice to make sure he understood. The Horizon was being assigned to lead a strike force deep into Vrak territory. Their target was Kepler Station, a massive logistics hub that coordinated supply lines for 20 sectors. It was one of the most heavily defended locations in the Vrak Empire. How many ships do we get? He asked Admiral Burke over a secure channel. 20, Burke replied. I know it's not much, but we're spread thin. Most of our fleet is still repairing damage from Sol. 20 ships against one of the most fortified stations in the galaxy. Jake almost laughed. Any other impossible missions you want to assign us? Just this one for now, Burke said. But Jake, this is critical. If we can destroy Kepler Station, we'll cripple Vrak operations across a huge area. More importantly, we'll prove that nowhere in their empire is safe. That fear is worth more than any military victory. Jake assembled his officers to plan the mission. Lieutenant Danny Cooper had been promoted to full tactical officer after his performance at Sol. The young man looked older now, his eyes carrying the weight of the friends he had lost. We can't fight our way through the station's defenses, Danny said, studying the intelligence reports. We'd be destroyed before we got close. Then we don't fight through them, Jake replied. We go around them. Kepler Station is a logistics hub. That means thousands of ships dock there every day. We disguise ourselves as traders and infiltrate. They'll scan us, another officer pointed out. They'll detect weapons. Not if we break the weapons down and smuggle them in piece by piece, Jake said. It'll take time, but we can reassemble them once we're inside. Nicole Hayes was assigned to accompany the mission. Her job was to make contact with potential resistance groups among the Vrak subject species. If Kepler Station was destroyed, someone needed to be ready to capitalize on the chaos. The journey into Vrak territory was tense. Every time they encountered a patrol, Jake expected to be discovered. But the Vrak security was designed to stop military fleets, not individual merchant ships. The Horizon, disguised with false transponders and cargo manifests, passed through 3 checkpoints without incident. Kepler Station was enormous, a city in space with millions of inhabitants. Most were subject species, forced to work in the Vrak war machine. Jake's team split up once they docked, each group with specific objectives. Some went to plant explosives in critical systems. Others went to make contact with resistance groups. Nicole met with a group of Torvin dock workers in a shadowy storage bay. They had been enslaved by the Vrak for decades, and their eyes showed the hopelessness of long captivity. But when Nicole showed them video of the Battle of Sol, when she explained that the Vrak had been beaten, something changed in those eyes. "You're saying we can fight them?" the leader of the group asked. "I'm saying you can win," Nicole corrected, "but you have to be willing to pay the price. People will die. Maybe you, maybe your friends. Freedom isn't free." The Torvin leader looked at his companions, then back at Nicole. "We're already dying. Slowly, in chains. At least this way we die standing up." Lieutenant Danny Cooper infiltrated the station's computer network. His mission was to download strategic data and plant a virus that would disrupt Vrak communications across the sector. He worked from a maintenance terminal, his fingers flying across the controls while he listened for approaching guards. What he found in the network shocked him. The Vrak Empire was overstretched. Their rapid expansion had created massive logistical problems. They were struggling to supply their forces, manage rebellions, and maintain control over newly conquered territories. From the outside, they looked invincible. From the inside, they were barely holding together. Danny downloaded everything he could find and sent it to the Horizon on an encrypted channel. This information was more valuable than destroying 100 stations. It was proof that the Vrak could be beaten by attrition, if humanity just kept the pressure on long enough. Jake Morrison was planting the last explosive charge in one of the station's reactor cores when he heard voices. Vrak security guards doing a routine patrol. He ducked behind a power conduit and held his breath. If they found him, the entire mission would be compromised. The guards passed by without seeing him. Jake finished setting the charge and made his way back to the docking bay where the Horizon waited. He was the last one to arrive. Everyone else had completed their objectives. "Is it done?" Nicole asked. "It's done," Jake confirmed. "We have 10 minutes before the charges blow. Let's go." The Horizon undocked and began moving away from Kepler Station. They moved slowly, carefully, just another merchant ship leaving after conducting business. Vrak traffic control didn't even bother to scan them. Then the charges detonated. The explosions were carefully placed to cause maximum damage with minimum loss of life. Jake's team had targeted structural supports, power systems, and fuel storage, but avoided areas with high civilian populations. Even in war, there were lines humanity wouldn't cross. Kepler Station began to break apart. Sections collapsed, systems failed. The carefully organized chaos of the logistics hub turned into real chaos. Ships scrambled to escape, colliding with each other in their panic. The Vrak garrison tried to respond, but they had no protocols for an internal attack. They were trained to defend against external threats, not sabotage from within. As the Horizon jumped to faster than light speed, Jake watched the station burning on his displays. He felt no satisfaction in the destruction, just weariness. This was the 3rd major battle he had fought in as many months. How many more before the war ended? The destruction of Kepler Station had consequences far beyond the immediate damage. Within days, Vrak supply lines across 20 sectors began to collapse. Ships ran out of fuel and ammunition. Occupation forces couldn't get reinforcements. And in that moment of weakness, the rebellions began. War leader Krenth stood before the Vrak High Command and delivered news no Vrak warrior had spoken in 1,000 years. "We are losing." The assembled leaders stirred uncomfortably. The Vrak had built their empire on the certainty of victory. Their technology was superior, their tactics proven across hundreds of conquests. Yet here was Krenth, one of their finest commanders, admitting defeat. "Explain," the Supreme Commander demanded. "The humans fight without honor," Krenth said. "They attack supply lines instead of warships. They hide in asteroid fields and strike from ambush. They teach our slaves to rebel. Every tactic they use violates the accepted rules of warfare. Then they will be crushed for their dishonor," the Supreme Commander declared. "Assemble our full strength. We will destroy the human homeworld and end this." Krenth bowed and left to carry out his orders. He would obey, as all Vrak warriors did, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the humans had already won, and his people simply didn't realize it yet. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon and read the intelligence reports with growing dread. The Vrak were gathering the largest fleet in their history, over 3,000 warships, and they were all heading toward Earth. Every military analyst agreed on the odds. Humanity had no chance. Orders from Admiral Burke, the communications officer reported. All human vessels are to return to the Sol system immediately. Jake knew what that meant. Burke was pulling back every ship for a final defense of Earth. It was the right tactical decision, but it also meant abandoning dozens of colonies and allied worlds. The Vrak would slaughter millions once humanity's protection was gone. "Set course for Earth," Jake ordered quietly. "Maximum speed." Lieutenant Danny Cooper worked frantically in the Horizon's science lab. They needed something new, some advantage that could offset the massive numerical superiority the Vrak possessed. He had been studying the Vrak technology captured from destroyed ships, looking for any weakness they could exploit. He found something interesting. Vrak warships had a rigid command structure, with every subordinate vessel linked to the fleet command ship. If the command ship was destroyed or disabled, the entire fleet would temporarily lose coordination. But exploiting that weakness meant getting close enough to the command ship to destroy it, which was suicide. Danny wrote up his findings and sent them to the Admiral's staff. An hour later, he received a response that chilled him. "Good work, Lieutenant. Plan approved. Begin preparations." Commander Lisa Grant received her mission orders and read them 3 times to make sure she understood correctly. She and her squadron were to penetrate the Vrak fleet formation and destroy the command ship. Expected survival rate, less than 5%. She called her pilots together and explained the mission. No one spoke for a long moment. Then her second-in-command, a pilot named Eric Lane, raised his hand. "Question, Commander. Is this going to work?" "Probably not," Grant admitted. "But if we don't try, Earth falls for certain. At least this way, we've got a chance." Eric nodded slowly. "Then I guess we better not screw it up." Every other pilot volunteered. They all knew the odds. They volunteered anyway. Dr. Paul Henderson had bad news for Admiral Burke. "We can't use the resonance disruptor as much as we need to. If we fire them as often as this battle plan requires, we'll tear holes in space-time that won't heal. We could collapse the sun's gravitational field." Burke looked at him with those cold eyes. "What's the probability of that happening?" "Maybe 30% if we use them at full intensity." "And the probability of Earth surviving without using them?" Henderson did the math in his head. "Less than 2%. "Then we use them," Burke decided. "If we're going to die, we might as well take the Vrak with us." Nicole Hayes was on Earth, helping to coordinate the evacuation of non-essential personnel. Billions of people were being moved to underground shelters or transported off-world on the few civilian ships available. She watched families being separated, children crying, old people refusing to leave their homes. This was what war really looked like, she thought. Not glorious battles in space, but ordinary people losing everything they loved. A young boy, maybe 8 years old, approached her. "Are the aliens really going to destroy Earth?" Nicole knelt down to his level. "They're going to try, but we're not going to let them." "My dad is a pilot," the boy said. "He says he's going to fight them. He says humans don't give up." "Your dad is right," Nicole told him, hoping she wasn't lying. "We don't give up. Ever." The Vrak fleet arrived at the Sol system exactly when predicted. 3,000 warships, the largest armada ever assembled by any species. They came out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, a wall of steel and death that stretched across space. Admiral Burke watched them appear on her displays. Humanity's entire defensive fleet numbered less than 600 ships. Even with the resonance disruptor, even with every advantage they had gained, the math was brutal. All ships, she broadcast on the command channel. This is Admiral Burke. 10 years ago, the Council told us we had to be civilized. They told us to follow the rules, to fight with honor, to respect the conventions of warfare. Today, we're going to show them why that was a mistake. Today, we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you back humans into a corner. Today, we fight for our home. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for survival. Make them remember this day. Make them remember that humanity doesn't know how to surrender. Jake Morrison heard the Admiral's words and felt something fierce rise in his chest. He keyed his own ship's intercom. Horizon crew, this is the captain. We're about to enter battle against an enemy that outnumbers us 5-1. They expect us to run or surrender. They're wrong. We're going to hurt them. We're going to make them bleed. And we're going to survive this because that's what humans do. We survive. Battle stations. The Vrak fleet began their attack run, moving in perfect formation toward Earth. Their tactics were textbook perfect. A wall of firepower that would sweep away any opposition. What they didn't know was that Admiral Burke had no intention of fighting a textbook battle. Execute Danny's plan, she ordered. The human fleet didn't maintain formation. They scattered in every direction, using the sun's corona to mask their movements. The Vrak sensors, designed for deep space combat, struggled to track targets through the intense solar radiation and magnetic fields. Commander Grant led her suicide squadron on a direct course toward the Vrak command ship. Every Vrak weapon in range targeted her ships. Energy beams and missiles filled space, trying to stop the crazy humans flying straight at them. Evasive maneuvers, Grant ordered calmly. Don't let them predict where you'll be. Her pilots threw their ships into random patterns, diving and climbing and spinning in ways that made no tactical sense. That was the point. Predictable targets died quickly. Unpredictable targets survived long enough to complete the mission. The resonance disruptors fired in coordinated volleys. The Vrak fleet's shields, so effective against conventional weapons, shattered under the harmonic assault. Human ships poured through the gaps, targeting vulnerable systems with conventional weapons. The Vrak ships tried to adapt, but they were designed for a different kind of war. They expected enemies to fight in formation, to follow patterns, to behave logically. Humans didn't fight logically. They fought to win. Dr. Henderson monitored space-time integrity from his control station. Every resonance disruptor shot created stress in the fabric of reality. Most of the tears healed, but some persisted. The sun's gravitational field was beginning to fluctuate. If this continued much longer, they would trigger a catastrophic collapse. He sent an urgent message to Admiral Burke. We're approaching critical threshold. We need to stop using the disruptors in 15 minutes, or we risk destroying the system. Burke's response was just 2 words. Acknowledged. Continue. Henderson stared at the message in disbelief. She was going to risk it. She was betting everything that they could win in the next 15 minutes. If they couldn't, Earth would be destroyed anyway. Not by the Vrak, but by humanity's own weapons. Jake Morrison brought the horizon in close to a Vrak battleship, closer than any sane captain would fly. His ship shuddered under the enemy's point defense fire, armor plates burning away, systems failing. But he held course. At this range, the resonance disruptor was devastating. The Vrak ship's shields didn't just fail, they exploded, the harmonic resonance tearing through the ship's internal systems. All weapons, fire, Jake ordered. The Horizon's missiles and energy weapons struck the exposed battleship at point-blank range. The Vrak vessel broke apart, sections of hull spinning away into space. Jake didn't celebrate. There were hundreds more ships out there, and his own vessel was badly damaged. Commander Grant's squadron reached the Vrak command ship. Of the 30 fighters that started the mission, only 8 remained. The rest were debris, their pilots dead, their sacrifice buying seconds of time. Grant armed her last missiles and locked onto the command ship's bridge. "This is for Earth," she said quietly, and fired. The missiles struck just as the command ship's shields came back online. The shields held, but barely. The impact destabilized them, creating a weakness. Grant saw it and made a split-second decision. She aimed her fighter at that weak point and accelerated to maximum speed. Eric Lane saw what his commander was doing. The Vrak war leader Krenth watched his fleet approach New Hartford with satisfaction. Another human colony would fall today. These creatures had developed a reputation for being unpredictable, but Krenth dismissed such concerns. No amount of unpredictability could overcome superior firepower. His ships had destroyed everything the Council threw at them. A handful of human vessels would be no different. "They're not retreating," his tactical officer observed. "The human ships are holding position." Krenth studied the tactical display. 6 human ships against 20 Vrak warships. Either these humans were brave or stupid. Probably stupid. Destroy them. The Vrak fleet opened fire. Their weapons carved through space, bright lances of energy that had obliterated countless enemies. But something was wrong. The human ships scattered in different directions, moving faster than any Council vessel Krenth had seen. They didn't fight like a fleet. They fought like individual hunters, each one following its own pattern. Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as the horizon dove under a Vrak energy beam. "Now, Danny, hit them now." The resonance disruptor fired for the first time in combat. It wasn't a visible weapon, no bright beam or missile trail. It was a wave of distorted space that crashed into the nearest Vrak ship's shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shields began to vibrate. The vibration grew stronger, faster, until the harmonic resonance tore the shields apart from the inside. "Direct hit," Danny reported, his voice shaking with excitement. "Their shields are down." "All weapons target that ship," Jake ordered. The Horizon's conventional weapons, useless against Vrak shields, now found their mark. The massive Vrak warship shuddered under the assault. Its armor held, but cracks appeared. More human ships converged on the wounded target, pouring fire into the gaps. Krenth stared in disbelief as one of his ships took damage. "Real damage. How is this possible? Their weapons shouldn't penetrate our shields." "They're using something new," his science officer said, checking readings. "Some kind of subspace resonance weapon. Our shields are vulnerable to it." "Then adjust shield frequency," Krenth snapped. "We can't, war leader. The shields are biologically linked to our neural patterns. Changing the frequency would kill the crew." Krenth felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Uncertainty. The Vrak had conquered hundreds of worlds using their superior shields. Their entire tactical doctrine depended on being invulnerable. These humans had just taken that advantage away. Commander Lisa Grant led a strike force of smaller human ships toward the Vrak fleet's flank. Her mission wasn't to destroy the enemy. That would take too long. Her mission was to make them afraid. She targeted their supply ships first, the vulnerable cargo vessels that carried fuel and ammunition for the warships. "Launch missiles," she ordered. Dozens of missiles streaked toward the supply ships. The Vrak point defense systems tried to intercept, but Grant had programmed the missiles to move erratically, changing course randomly. Half the missiles were destroyed, but the rest reached their targets. The supply ships exploded in brilliant fireballs. Supply lines severed. Grant reported to Admiral Burke. "The Vrak fleet can fight for maybe 6 more hours before they run out of ammunition." Burke's voice came back over the comm. "Good work, Lisa. Now get out of there. We need you alive for the next mission." Grant didn't argue. Her ships turned and fled into the asteroid field surrounding New Hartford. The Vrak gave chase, but the humans knew this territory. They had spent 3 days mapping every rock, every hiding spot, every ambush point. The pursuing Vrak ships ran straight into a minefield. Dr. Paul Henderson watched the battle data from his lab on Earth. The resonance disruptor was working better than he had hoped, but it was also more dangerous. Each time one fired, it created small tears in the fabric of space. Most of them healed immediately, but some didn't. If they used this weapon too much, they could cause permanent damage to reality itself. He sent an urgent message to Admiral Burke. "The disruptor works, but we can only use it sparingly. Too many shots in one area could collapse local spacetime." Burke's response was immediate. "How sparingly?" "Maybe 10 shots per cubic light year before the risk becomes unacceptable." "Paul, we're fighting for survival. What's an acceptable risk when extinction is the alternative?" Henderson had no answer to that. He went back to his calculations, trying to find a way to make the weapon safer. But deep down, he knew Burke was right. Safety didn't matter if they all died. At New Hartford, the battle was turning. The Vrak had lost 3 ships and dozens of supply vessels. Krenth pulled his fleet back, regrouping at the system's edge. The humans didn't pursue. They held their defensive positions, protecting the colony world below. "Status report," Jake demanded. "2 of our ships are heavily damaged," his executive officer reported. "Casualties are at 15%. But we held them off, sir." "They're retreating." Jake didn't celebrate. He had bought time, nothing more. The Vrak would return with different tactics, more ships, better preparation. This first victory would be meaningless if they couldn't repeat it. Nicole Hayes spent her days trying to convince Council species that humanity's tactics could work for them too. She met with military commanders, planetary governors, anyone who would listen. Most of them were polite but skeptical. Humans were naturally aggressive, they said. Human tactics required a willingness to take risks that civilized species couldn't accept. "You're not listening," Nicole said to a group of Council military officers. "We're not asking you to become human. We're asking you to remember that you're alive. Living things fight when threatened. You've spent so long being peaceful that you've forgotten how." "We haven't forgotten," a Council admiral replied. "We've evolved beyond such primitive behaviors. We choose diplomacy over violence." "And how's that working out?" Nicole shot back. "The Vrak have taken 40 of your worlds in 2 months. How many more will you lose while you're choosing diplomacy?" The meeting ended badly, with Nicole being asked to leave. She reported back to Burke, frustrated and angry. "They won't listen. They'd rather lose everything than admit they need to change." "Let them lose," Burke said coldly. "We'll save the ones who want to be saved. The rest can surrender if that's what they choose." But not all Council species were content to surrender. The Torvin, a species enslaved by the Vrak decades ago, had been watching humanity's tactics closely. They sent a secret delegation to Nicole Hayes asking for help. They wanted to fight back, to free their worlds, but they didn't know how. Nicole brought the Torvin delegates to Admiral Burke. The aliens looked at the human admiral with a mixture of hope and fear. Burke studied them carefully, then nodded. "We can help you," she said, "but you need to understand something. Fighting back means people will die. Your people. Are you ready for that?" The Torvin leader, a being named Vex, met Burke's eyes. "We're already dying. At least this way we die fighting." Burke smiled. "Good, Lisa, they're yours. Teach them everything." Commander Grant began training Torvin resistance fighters. She taught them how to sabotage Vrak facilities, how to strike supply lines, how to disappear after an attack. The Torvin learned quickly. They had spent years watching their oppressors, learning Vrak patterns and weaknesses. Now they finally had the knowledge to exploit those weaknesses. The first Torvin attack happened on the occupied world of Pelion 3. A small team infiltrated a Vrak ammunition depot and destroyed it. The explosion was visible from orbit. More importantly, it was a message. The Vrak were not invincible. They could be hurt. War leader Krenth received reports of increasing resistance activities across occupied territories. Attacks on supply lines, sabotage of facilities, assassination of occupation officials, all of it following human tactical patterns. The humans weren't just fighting their own battles. They were teaching others to fight too. "We need to make an example," Krenth told his commanders. "Destroy an entire planet. Show these species what happens when they resist." But which planet? Krenth needed to choose carefully. Too important and they'd waste resources destroying it. Not important enough and the lesson would be lost. He selected Torvin Prime, homeworld of the species causing most of the resistance problems. When Admiral Burke learned of Krenth's plan, she immediately dispatched forces to defend Torvin Prime. It was a trap, she knew. The Vrak wanted to draw human forces into a major battle where numbers would matter. But she couldn't let an entire species be exterminated. Jake Morrison's Horizon was part of the defensive fleet. So was Commander Grant's strike force, Lieutenant Danny Cooper, and thousands of human volunteers. They reached Torvin Prime 3 days before the Vrak fleet arrived. "We're outnumbered again," Jake observed, looking at the tactical display. "This is becoming a habit." "At least we're consistently outnumbered," Danny joked weakly. "That's something." The Torvin Defense Force, newly trained by Grant's teams, took positions alongside the human ships. They were inexperienced, their ships were old, but they were determined. Vex, the Torvin leader, broadcast a message to his people across the planet. Today we stop running. Today we stop hiding. Today we fight. Not because we want to, but because we must. The humans have shown us that freedom is possible. Now we must prove we deserve it. When the Vrak fleet arrived, they found a very different enemy than expected. The alarm system screamed across every council station in the galaxy. Something massive had emerged from the galactic core, something that shouldn't exist. Admiral Helen Burke stood in her small apartment on Earth, watching the emergency broadcasts with cold eyes. She had warned them this would happen. 10 years ago, when humanity first joined the galactic community, she had told the Council that peace without strength was just waiting to die. They had called her a warmonger and forced her into retirement. Now they were paying the price. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the Earth defense vessel Horizon, reading the tactical reports with growing horror. The Vrak Empire had destroyed 3 entire Council fleets in less than a week. Not defeated, destroyed. Every ship turned to debris, every crew member dead. The Vrak didn't take prisoners, didn't negotiate, didn't even slow down. They just swept through system after system like a wave of steel and fire. Captain, we're receiving a priority message, his communications officer said. It's encrypted with old Earth military codes. Jake frowned. Those codes hadn't been used in years, not since the Council made humanity agree to use their standardized systems. He authorized the decryption and felt his blood run cold when he saw who sent it. Admiral Burke. The woman the Council had silenced because she scared them too much. The message was simple. Jake, they're going to lose. The Council has forgotten how to fight real wars. Meet me at coordinates I'm sending separately. Bring officers you trust. Don't tell the Council. We have work to do. Across the galaxy, Nicole Hayes sat in the Council chambers and watched species she had worked with for 5 years fall apart. As Earth's diplomatic liaison, she had spent countless hours building relationships, learning alien cultures, trying to show that humans could be civilized. Now those same aliens were screaming at each other, pointing fingers, arguing about who should surrender first. We must negotiate, Chancellor Theron of the Zephyx insisted. His blue skin had gone pale with fear. The Vrak are clearly superior. We should seek terms before they destroy everything. Terms? Nicole couldn't keep the disgust from her voice. They're not asking for terms. They're taking what they want and killing anyone who resists. Then we shouldn't resist, another council member said quietly. We should accept their rule and hope they are merciful. Nicole stood up and walked out. She had heard enough. These people had spent so long being peaceful that they had forgotten how to be strong. She pulled out her communicator and sent a message to the only human who might have answers. Admiral Burke. Lieutenant Danny Cooper was young, barely 25, but he was the best tactical analyst on the horizon. He spent his shifts studying enemy movements, looking for patterns, searching for weaknesses. The Vrak seemed perfect. Their shields were unbreakable. Their weapons cut through Council defenses like paper. Their tactics were flawless. But Danny had learned something important during his training. Nothing was perfect. Everything had a flaw. You just had to look hard enough. He ran the scanner data through analysis programs for the 100th time. The Vrak shields operated on a frequency he had never seen before. It resonated with something, creating a harmonic that made them nearly impenetrable. But harmonics worked both ways. If you could match the frequency, you could cancel it out. Or you could amplify it until it tore itself apart. The problem was simple. Creating that kind of resonance weapon would require technology that damaged the fabric of space itself. The Council had banned that research decades ago. They called it too dangerous, too unpredictable. Danny called it their only chance. He wrote up his findings and sent them to Captain Morrison. Within an hour, he was summoned to the captain's ready room. Jake looked at the report, then at Danny, then back at the report. "You're sure about this?" Jake asked. "As sure as I can be with limited data, sir." "And you know what you're suggesting?" "The Council would call this a war crime." Danny met his captain's eyes. "Sir, the Council is about to be extinct. I don't think they get to decide what's criminal anymore." Jake smiled grimly. "I got a message from Admiral Burke. She wants to meet. I think you should come with me." 2 days later, Jake, Danny, and a dozen other trusted officers gathered at an abandoned mining station in the Outer Rim. Admiral Burke was already there, looking older, but no less sharp. With her were hundreds of other humans, military personnel who had also been pushed aside by the Council's peacetime policies. "Welcome," Burke said without preamble. "I'm going to tell you something that will change everything. When humanity first encountered the Council, we were scared. We didn't know if they were friends or enemies, so we did what humans always do. We prepared for the worst." She activated a holographic display. "We built weapons, lots of weapons. Weapons that broke Council laws, weapons that scared our own scientists, weapons that we hoped we'd never need. When the Council found out, they demanded we destroy everything. We agreed publicly." Burke's smile was dangerous. "But we didn't destroy anything. We hid it. Every illegal weapon, every banned technology, every tactical system the Council was too afraid to use. We put it all in secret caches scattered across human space. We called it Protocol Reaper." One of the officers spoke up. "Why? Why risk breaking our treaties?" "Because I knew this day would come," Burke said. "I knew that eventually, someone would show up who was stronger than the Council, someone who didn't care about their rules and their peace. I knew that when that day came, humanity would need to remember how to fight dirty." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You've been planning this for 10 years. "Longer," Burke admitted. "The Council thought they were civilizing us. They were really just making us more dangerous. We learned all their technology, all their tactics, all their weaknesses, and we kept our own advantages secret." Danny stepped forward. "Admiral, I found something about the Vrak shields. They have a vulnerability, but exploiting it requires weapons that damage subspace." Burke's smile widened. "Show me." For the next hour, Danny explained his findings. Burke and her team analyzed the data, ran simulations, checked calculations. Finally, she nodded. "This can work. We can hurt them. But we need to move fast. The Council is already talking about surrender." "Let them talk," Commander Lisa Grant said. She was one of Burke's oldest allies, a veteran of humanity's pre-contact wars. "While they're debating, we'll be fighting." Nicole Hayes arrived at the station that evening, having followed Burke's coordinates. She looked around at the assembled humans and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. "They're going to surrender," she told Burke. "Chancellor Theron contacted me privately. He wants to offer humanity special terms if we agree to lay down our weapons." "Special terms," Burke said flatly. "Like being the Vrak's favorite slaves?" He didn't put it that way, but yes. Burke turned to face the entire assembly. "The Council is done. They've forgotten that freedom isn't given. It's taken. It's fought for. It's paid for in blood and sacrifice. They think they can negotiate with monsters. They're wrong." She activated Protocol Reaper's master control. Across human space, hidden caches began broadcasting their locations to trusted commanders. Weapons that had been sleeping for a decade came online. Ships that existed only in classified files emerged from hiding. "The Council wanted us to be civilized," Burke said. "They wanted us to fight clean, to follow rules, to be predictable. They're about to learn why that was a mistake. Humanity doesn't fight clean. We fight to win." Jake felt his communicator buzz. New orders were coming in, targeting data, tactical plans, mission parameters. The Horizon was being assigned to defend the New Hartford colony, a world with 50 million civilians that the Vrak would reach in 3 days. 3 days, he muttered. "We have 3 days to figure out how to beat an unbeatable enemy." Danny looked at his datapad, reviewing the resonance weapon specifications. "Then we better get started, sir." The meeting ended with everyone receiving their assignments. Some would defend key worlds. Others would strike at Vrak supply lines. A few would retrieve the hidden weapons and get them operational. Every human understood what was about to happen. They were going to war. Real war. The kind the Council had forgotten existed. As the officers departed, Burke pulled Jake aside. "Chancellor Theron is going to contact you. He'll offer you a command position if you convince Earth to stand down. He thinks he can split humanity from our military." "What should I tell him?" "Tell him the truth," Burke said. "Tell him that humanity doesn't negotiate with slavers. Tell him that we'd rather die free than live on our knees. Tell him that if the council won't fight, we'll fight alone." Jake nodded. He returned to the horizon and began preparations. His crew worked around the clock, retrofitting their ship with weapons from the Protocol Reaper caches. The resonance disruptor was still experimental, but they had 3 days to make it work. On the third day, the Vrak arrived at New Hartford. 20 massive warships, each one larger than anything the Council had ever built. They broadcast the standard message: surrender or die. Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, looked at his outgunned fleet, and smiled. The Vrak were about to learn an important lesson. Humans were most dangerous when they had nothing to lose.